We should all mute, by the way.
Good evening, Facebook. It's right around 5 o'clock, which means we're live here with our 7th conservation conversation of the summer. I'm Rebecca Dahl, Program Coordinator for the Connecticut Land Conservation Council, or CLCC for short. And tonight we'll be traveling down to Wilton for a tour of the 183 property owned and managed by the Wilton Land Conservation Trust. We have a great group of people here in the Zoom room to talk more about this property and conservation across Connecticut. And we're so thankful for all of you who took the time out of your day to join us for this conversation. We will kick this off by taking a brief virtual tour of the 183, and then we'll come back here for a discussion around the project and the funding that made this possible through the Community Investment Act and DEEP's Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Grant Program. But first, I'm going to hand it on over to CLCC's Executive Director, Amy Patterson, to talk a little bit more about those funding sources. Oh, and Amy, we just got to get you right off of mute there.
I would be a wealthy woman if I got paid for every time I did that. Sorry. So greetings, everybody. And I was just saying to Rebecca, you should mute your phone because I think that the static might have been coming from that background there. So welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday and welcome to Wilton. And again, I'm Amy Patterson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Land Conservation Council, or CLCC, which is the umbrella organization for Connecticut's land conservation community, working most predominantly with the state's over 130 land trusts and the communities that they serve. CLCC wears many hats. We provide training and education and technical assistance to the land conservation community. We do a lot of convening, bringing groups together to foster collaboration, but we also advocate on behalf of the community at the Capitol. And one of our annual priorities is protecting the Open Space and Watershed and Land Acquisition Grant Program, which is funded through the Community Investment Act and bonding. The Open Space Grant Program really has become the backbone for land conservation efforts of towns, municipalities, land trusts, and water companies. It's a matching grants program, and since its creation, it has helped to protect over 36,000 acres of land in Connecticut. The Community Investment Act is the only consistent source of funding for that program. That funding source was created by statute in 2005 through a huge bipartisan effort. It is the revenue source is from a $40 recording fee at the local level, and most of that money goes up and fills the Community Investment Act account, which then is divided up amongst 5 land use-based programs: the Open Space Grant Program, the Farmland Preservation Program, the Dairy Support Sustainability Program, the Affordable Housing Program, and Historic Property Preservation Program, all state programs based in land use. And it also has been hugely successful. Again, it's a consistent source of funding. It's a dedicated account set up outside the general budget. And so technically it should be a standalone fund and left alone to do its amazing work. And that includes over $152 million reinvested in almost every community now in Connecticut that has had at least one Community Investment Act project. The challenge with the Community Investment Act, like many of our dedicated funds, is that when we have tough budget times, fiscal times like we are having right now, it is often looked to as a source of revenue that can be used to help address budget shortfalls. And so advocates like the Connecticut Land Conservation Council and other land conservation organizations, as well as those other sectors that I referenced, really work each and every session to make sure that both the level of funding in that account stays protected, as well as the integrity of the fund. This past legislative session, we were lucky to protect the fund to make sure that it wasn't moved into the general fund, which would then remove its status as a dedicated fund. So it's always challenging, and we are really grateful tonight to have so many legislators here who we know that we can look to help us in protecting land conservation funding like the Community Investment Act. So before we move to the video and take our tour, I just wanted to give a shout out to all of those legislators, because now I know Representative O'Day is here with us as well. We were waiting for you too. So delighted that you're here, as well as Senator Hwang, Senator Haskell, Representatives Steinberg. I don't know, Representative McCarthy Vahey has not shown up yet. We hope she will join us. Representative Hughes, and again, Representative O'Day. So thank you all so much for taking the time tonight to come. And just in time is Representative McCarthy Vahey, who I just said we have one more legislator we're expecting. So great to have you here. Thank you. And after we take a tour of the property, we're going to turn this over to the Land Trust and then our legislators, and we'll do some talking. Meanwhile, let's take a tour. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much. You know, before we dive into the conversation, there he is. I have to recognize Representative Joe Gresko, who I omitted in when I was doing the introductions and the thanks. So Representative Gresko, thank you so much for joining us as well. And we look forward to hearing you in just a few minutes as well. Thank you. And sorry about that. I don't know if you went blank or I did, but either way, thanks for being here. So with that, why don't we turn it over to the Land Trust and hear some more about this wonderful property. David, you want to help us out there?
Yeah, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is David McCarthy. I am Wilton Land Conservation Trust's newest appointed executive director. Today, I'm joined by our board president, Peter Gaborio, our treasurer, Mike Foster, and our trustee, former ED, Donna Merrill. We are very excited to be here and thankful for everything that CLCC has done to put this together. Thank you for our legislators for being here today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days to join us and talk about conservation in Connecticut. I would like to extend, first of all, our appreciation for the OSWA grant program and our legislators for supporting it. The funding that comes through the Community Investment Act is absolutely critical to conservation across Connecticut. And this program is very important and possibly one of the greatest tools we have for large-scale land conservation and to help Connecticut achieve its green plan. This was the largest purchase we've ever done, and the OSWA grant helped make it possible. So I strongly encourage other land trusts and conservancies to learn about it and see if it's right for them and explore this fantastic program. We are very lucky and grateful to be a recipient of it. So thank you so much. I also want to just say that, you know, in these uncertain and very strange and different times due to COVID-19, in the past, these conversations were in person, live, on site, and CLCC had every reason in the world, and justified so, to throw in the towel, but they didn't, and they persevered. And so us being here today is a testimony to just how important conservation is in Connecticut. And I'd like to personally thank Rebecca, Catherine, and Amy for all their support in setting this up. And they were a blessing to work with, and they made this whole thing a breeze. Congratulations on ensuring that the third year of conservation conversations continue. Last but not least, I definitely want to take a quick moment to thank our supporters, members, and advocates. Community support and encouragement was essential for this proposal to work, and the Wilton community did not fall short of that. We were very encouraged by the tremendous amounts of support that poured in around 183. We were overjoyed by the success of the proposal, and we are very excited to realize our dream and vision on the property. A little bit about that property. I consider it a magical place. When I first stepped foot on this property to meet the board, it felt like a dream. It just, it's so picturesque. I mean, this 13-acre property expresses several landscapes, forest, meadow, wetland. It even has a watercourse. It captures and reflects Wilton's agrarian roots. It's in the heart of the pollinator pathway, and it's centrally located within Wilton, so it has potential for trail connectivity to make it walkable from the town center. And it implements the town's PCOD and gets us one step further to succeeding at Connecticut's green plan. As of right now, it's going to be a great place for recreation, leisure, and picnics, birding, community education, all realized through local partnerships and the will of and drive of the Wilton Land Conservation Trust. And we're working our hardest to ensure that the landowner education is at the forefront of our thinking, as well as community education in and around the environment at 183. It's written into a prerequisite of our major contribution. And I will give you a brief overview of some of the things we have queued up. So we have a partnership with the Woodcock Nature Center to get some community education tours and guided meadow walks. We're going to be working with the American Chestnut Society to get an experimental chestnut grove out there to help create a blight-resistant strand of genes for the chestnut tree. And with the Wilton Historical Society, we're going to be growing and producing flax right on site. So that's going to be something for maybe not everyone, but it's going to be really cool. 183 is a place for forever discovery. It's a place for forever education, and it's a permanently preserved habitat. And I can't underscore that word enough, permanent. And that's that's why we are here. That's what we're doing. And that's what we're very proud to say, is that we've permanently preserved 183. And for now, it's a magical place to be painted with a canvas full of opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David. I wanted to just direct a question over to Peter and Mike from the Wilton Land Conservation Trust, a little bit more about the OSWA funding and how those funding sources came together to save the property.
So
Mike?
yeah, Peter Gabori, I'm the president of the Land Trust. And just quickly, I don't want to bore you too much, but Wilton had a long municipal history of assisting in open space preservation, providing the funding for most of the acquisitions, whether it was through easement or ownership. With the municipal crunch that's happened, that ended. So this property was on the market for quite some time, and we never were even considering buying it because it had a really cool old house on it that was in very poor shape. So we didn't have the money to fix the house, and we didn't want to be in the position of tearing down the house. So it eventually was bought by a developer who did tear down the house and who then proposed 35 clustered housing units on a property that was zoned for 5 houses. So there was a huge outcry from the neighbors, and it was front page news for weeks in Wilton. And we decided that after it sort of got bounced around a little bit and the developer wasn't having a clear path, that we would approach him and see if maybe we could work something out. And to his credit, he did, he give us a discount, a huge discount, and he let us buy it. And he also introduced us to our largest donor, which is the Bauer Foundation, which donated initially $750,000, which was what got us off the ground. We've never raised this kind of money. We've put out, 300,000 was the most we've ever put out, but that was from our bank account from membership dues, but an actual raise to buy a specific property has never been done. And we never applied for a grant. So it was all new to us. And without the grant, it doesn't happen though. Even though we did raise 1.5 million, we still needed more, and we got a $707,000 grant, which closed the gap and made it possible. So without the grant, we wouldn't have started the process, and without the grant, we could never have finished the process. So thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Anything to add, Mike, before we turn it over to our legislators?
No, maybe a couple of small points. This negotiation with the developer started in the fall of 2017. So we ended up closing on the property in May of 2020. And after we got the grant awarded in February, I think we found out. So this is a long road, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I would say we're prepared to share our lessons learned with any other land trust that is going to try to embark on a similar endeavor. I was new to the land trust at the time, so I had no idea what I was doing, but the land trust had had done anything of this magnitude before, and yet we embarked on it and we succeeded. It was 2.5 years of blood, sweat, and tears, but we did it. So I would say one of the things is we would be glad to share lessons learned with anybody, any other land trust in any of these other districts or any other towns. And we have quite a few different towns represented here, not just Wilton. So we definitely will share lessons learned here. But you don't undertake something like this and think it's going to happen quickly. It's going to be a 3-year effort from start to finish.
Thanks, Mike. I'm really glad you said that, because I always say that these land conservation deals take patience, they take persistence, they take passion, and they take money. And so you really have covered all of those points. And I think that the 183 property really kind of captures all of that. And so with that, I'd love to hear from our legislators and give you all an opportunity to talk about just basically some thoughts on projects like this. And those of you that, are here from other districts, it's really, to me, that is a real testament to your commitment to land conservation and the recognition that, the natural resources that we're conserving don't stop at political boundaries. From town to town, they just flow, or they're in the air. And so the fact that we're all here together regionally looking at this one property really is again, it's a testament to that. So thank you again for that. And we'd love to hear, just to start off, some thoughts from each of you on how projects like this impact your community, and how important that the Community Investment Act is in terms of making these types of projects happen. So I'm going to start off with Representative Gresko, and then I'm going to go in order because I still feel terrible, Representative, that I didn't give that shout out at the very start.
You're just used to looking at me, so
I am used to looking at you, that's for sure. And it's good to see you here.
good to see you, and good to see everybody. Thanks for taking the time. I'll try to be brief since everybody wants to get a turn, but the OSWA grant and the CIA, if there's any more proof of its popularity, is that I think these last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, Amy, we're at the peak number of applications from both land trusts and municipalities that are trying to take advantage of the funding for not only open space preservation, but also community gardens for the more urban areas. So the word is getting out, which is good, which will assist us if and when the time comes to try to make sure that the OSWA funding is maintained, to make sure that the Community Investment Act money is maintained. I believe, I remember in the recent past, I got an email, I can't remember from who, but it listed all of the projects that the CIA paid for in my municipality. So I'm sure that that can be reconstructed for each of our districts, so that if and when the time comes, and I mean, nothing against leadership, but to plug a budget hole, the funding is attractive. But if each of us had a handful of projects that were successful in our districts, and more to come, it would be easier to push back on that. So I know that we've been working recently in Stratford on we have a town forest, believe it or not, and we are looking to expand on that through some OSWA grants and some donations, hopefully, going forward. So that's a success right out of the chute for me to be motivated. And then lastly, I'm sure that I'm hoping that the hot real estate market now will kind of be a motivator to realtors, just that they won't flip out on me again when I put the conveyance bill in next session. So I don't get 2,000 hate mails. I'll only get 1,000 hate mails. But it's going in. So as a way of it's totally enabling. The municipality would have to vote. Their legislative body would have to vote to even do this. So it's not like it's a mandate, Tony, it's not a mandate. We could explore that as far as a funding source. So with that being said, we can go on to the next legislator, and thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Just a couple of comments before I move on. And I'm looking at my grid, and just so that I don't miss anybody, I'm going to start with Representative Hughes. But just a couple of comments. First, as far as the projects in your own communities, the Community Investment Act website allows you to click on your town and see a list of those projects. But CLCC also has flyers, and we will make sure that we send those flyers to each of you by way of follow-up. And it should list at least a sampling of the projects across the board, not just through open space, but for the other sectors as well that have been completed in your communities, thanks to the CIA. And that's www.communityinvestmentact.org. The other comment that I wanted to make, just to underscore again what Representative Gresko said, is that the Urban Green and Community Garden Program is part of the Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Grant Program, or OSWA. And that program is funded exclusively through the Community Investment Act. And that program received, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Representative, because we just had a review board meeting, $800,000 worth of requests from just 5 urban communities that are seeking those funds for urban green and community garden projects. And again, that's an OSWA program funded exclusively through the CIA. So really, it's an across the board important program that impacts really every community in the state, from our most rural corners to our most densely populated cities. It's really an amazing piece of legislation. So with that, let me turn it over to Representative Hughes for some comments as well.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here. I echo just really celebrating the regional wide successes of this, and actually statewide successes. And the more we can spread that celebration and applause through the public and educate the public about how these mechanisms work, because it really is an investment in our open space, our green space, our land conservation, and our natural resources that make Connecticut a place that people are flocking to live near, you know. And I want to really remind, you know, like you said, when budgets get tight, to find ways to invest. Think of it as an investment. And the conveyance bill that Representative Gresko, who sits next to me, is talking about is a way for municipalities to be able to do that and invest in that. And if we can share that, both the use and the enjoyment and the pride in those, but also share the investment in keeping the Community Investment Act going and keeping these mechanisms of conservation space going, then the public will is behind it, and we basically fund what the public will is behind, you know, especially when times get tough. So the public has more power than they know, but it's our job to also celebrate the successes and the opportunities that this program is now flourishing. So thanks.
Thank you, Representative Hughes. And, you know, as far as the municipal funding, the enabling legislation, again, it's enabling. And I will say that having worked very hard on trying to get that bill raised over the last few years, and then some before I even came on board, towns are asking for it. We had over 20 towns asked to be included in a pilot program a couple of years ago. And so I believe that, you know, I agree with you. I think when we're looking for creative options for funding, and those that are optional, that's a terrific one that we need to put out there at the forefront. Representative Steinberg, you are next on my grid. Love to hear from you.
Well, thank you. And it's really great to be having this conversation. I'm actually envious of you who are outdoors, because it seems more appropriate under the circumstances. You know, I really think Joe made a really good point. In order for us to be successful, we need this to be a grassroots groundswell of activity. And I fear that to some degree, our fellow residents don't fully appreciate exactly what is under their noses when it comes to open space and land trusts and the like. They exist in most of the communities around us, yet I'm not so sure that we have enough people experiencing them. I view this whole pandemic as an opportunity. People are now eager to be outdoors. We're coming to the best part of what I think is Connecticut, which is fall. And it would be wonderful if we could invite people to experience all of these public trust spaces. You know, I was very excited by the pollinator pathway concept, so that will capture some folks. But just finding ways to engage folks safely with social distancing in those various things that the CIA pays for. I was shocked. I just went to see Westport's benefit, and $115,000 goes to Harbor Watch, which is so important for a lot of the things we do. And I wouldn't think, we don't think of agriculture, including the waterways, but yet that's very important to the state of Connecticut as well. So it touches us in so many ways. And I think we need to make it personal and resonant to as many constituents as possible. So if there are any shenanigans by the legislature, and you know, we've raided it once, and we'll kill again if given the opportunity. And we are facing very tough budget times once again. It would be great if everybody immediately responds that don't touch the CIA. Here are projects on the ground that have benefited, that enhance, enrich our communities in a fashion that is even perhaps more valued today because of what we're going through with COVID than it ever was before. So I'd like to look at this as a moment of opportunity. where we find ways to invite people to take advantage of the various sites around our region and make them really strong zealots in support of what we have done and will do in the future. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Representative. That is great advice. It's terrific advice. And maybe once we go through our legislators and hear from others, I'd love to turn it back to the Land Trust and get some thoughts on that and community outreach and some of the ways that you are connecting with your community and getting folks out on the land, either, obviously before COVID, but even during COVID. Love to hear more from the Land Trust on that. And next is Senator Haskell on my grid. And I'd love to hear from you too. Thank you.
Sure. Amy, thank you so much for putting this together. And thank you to the CLCC for featuring this remarkable property. I can't tell you how often I drive on Ridgefield Road and pass by 183. So it was so special to see that what must have been drone footage of the property. And I want to thank Peter and David and Mike for their tireless work to secure that. It's so wonderful to see the 26 districts featured as an example for the rest of the state of what's possible when folks come together and work hard to preserve open space. You know, I think that Representative Steinberg, I hate following Representative Steinberg, I think he said it so well. When in this period of social distancing and in the midst of this terrible pandemic, it's increasingly clear that open space is becoming just more valuable. And that's why Connecticut seems so attractive to families in the city that are looking towards Fairfield County and the rest of the state as a new destination, a new place to raise their kids, to start a family, to buy a home. And we have to be honest about the fact that a huge part of what makes our community so wonderful to live in is the fact that we do preserve open space, is the fact that that 183 property is available to the Woodcock Nature Center, is the fact that the 183 property preserves that wetland habitat that's so in danger. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to partner with the CLCC. I actually know of a few open space and watershed land acquisition grants that are currently in the works in my district. One of the great joys of being a legislator is writing letters of support when land trusts come to us and ask us to lend a hand when they're applying for those. So, please continue to reach out. And I really do, as Jonathan said, look forward to rising up alongside so many constituents and so many activists and so many legislators on both sides of the aisle in support of the Community Investment Act. Of course, I support Governor Lamont's debt diet, but it's really hard to imagine a better use for the state's credit card than making sure that generations to come can enjoy our wonderful natural resources. So I will keep it super short, but Amy, thank you for having me and thanks for all that you do. And thanks to the Wilton folks who were featured tonight. Congratulations and looking forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you. And I want to just underscore based upon what you just said, and Representative Gresko said it, but I think it's worth repeating, and that is, in the last grant round, it was the second highest number of grant applications in the program's history. This current grant round that is under review is the highest number of applications. There are 35 open space and watershed land acquisition grant applications that have come in at a fair market value dollar amount that is really, it's high, and it's going to require funding. And again, it's a matching grants program. It's 65% and 75% for targeted and distressed communities, which really ensures that our communities have skin in the game. But that grant is hugely important as a leverage point, which is what our land trust folks have emphasized tonight. So we will continue to remind all of you about those numbers, but I think many of you will be hearing from your communities about projects pending there. So thanks again for bringing that up as well, Senator. Representative O'Day, you are next on my Brady Bunch screen.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Amy, Peter, David, Mike, and I see that Michael Duggan is on as well. He's been a valuable resource for us up in Hartford in advocating for you all. So I'd like to see Mike here as well. Living in New Canaan and spending a lot of time in Wilton, I'm obviously very pleased with 183 and all the work you did. I'm looking up at the amount of money for the CIA that was spent in New Canaan's got $75,000 for the Gorse Pavilion and $10,000 for the Land Trust, and the Glass House 50, the Preservation Alliance another 20, and Wilton. I don't know how update this is. It doesn't have anything for 183, so I think you might want to update the page on the money that Wilton got from the CIA. But it's obviously fantastic. Joe, I'm not sure I can I can co-sponsor your bill, but I will look at it again. My first selectman, Kevin Moynihan, has been up in Nantucket, sponsors a similar program for land trust and purchase of open space, and he's been an advocate for it. So I promised Joe I will listen some more and reconsider my position on your bill. You're always a good advocate and a wise man. So I may be wrong again in my opposition to your bill previously. Promise to re-examine it. But no, thank you all. Happy to be part of it, and looking forward to supporting it and keeping the money for what it's intended and not raiding the candy jars we tend to do, as I think Jonathan had pointed out. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Representative O'Day. A couple of things, I want to say that you mentioned about the CIA website, and you're right. We that gets updated probably every 2 years or so, and so there are even more projects that are not yet reflected on there. Not just again for open space, but all across the board. And I'll use this as an opportunity to introduce Yao Darko, who is CLCC's new Sandy Breslin Conservation Fellow, who just joined us just I don't know, a few weeks ago, really. Yao, having our first Sandy Breslin Conservation Fellow graduated and has moved on to a full-time job. And Yao's a grad student at UConn, and we're really delighted to have him. And if we're lucky enough to come to the Capitol in person this session, you'll see Yao with me, and hope to see you there. Otherwise, we'll see you via Zoom. But thanks for that reminder. And yes, you're absolutely right, Representative. We will continue to work on that CIA website. Senator Hwang, good to see you as always. Last time I saw you, I think we were holding puppies in the atrium.
Hold on, I'm going to unmute, just like you having that trouble. You know what? Thank you so much for having me and the collection of people. It's so exciting to be present, and what an exciting acquisition. I will offer this. Is this not a great example of a public-private partnership in regards to collaboration, letting local input and control offer their best insights, and having the state government participate along with private foundations? It really is a great model, and I'm very appreciative for the Wilton organization to offer their expertise and their experience, because that's a valuable lesson to be learned. And I think when we talk about the challenge of the economics that we're going to have, I don't even think we have fully realized the challenge of COVID and our economic picture in regards to the state budget. The governor quietly just last week offered to his entire agency that he wanted a 10% across the board cut. That's going to be very tough in a post session that we just made some cuts, right? And so our budget challenge is going to be very critical, and the opportunity, the blueprint that Wilton offered in this kind of a dynamic may be a model moving forward for open space acquisition. I will also follow up. It's kind of hard following my colleagues, because you're right. We're all advocates here and everybody has so much good perspective. But I will offer to Representative Gresko's conveyance question. I'm fully supportive of that, because it's a kind of a collaboration of local, state, and private investment in this area, and it is an opt-in. And I think it was important for you to offer the fact that this was not a mandate, and it's an opt-in for the community. And I think if we go along that and allow communities to have that local control impact, I think it's very important. I think the other thing that I want to offer is that video that was shot. I want to compliment the producers of it and their use of technology and drone to really show how beautiful it is. When I was invited to this, I actually took a drive out there, and having some time and social distancing, I actually took a walk around that area, and it is, as my dad always taught me, they don't make that stuff anymore. It's nature, it's best, and we have an important responsibility now and for future generations to preserve that. I think that's an inherent legislative as well as a social responsibility to ensure that future generations get a chance to experience the beauty for all that it stands, the watershed and the strategic location of that property is pretty special too, because it connects up to Lover's Lane and it goes down into a couple of additional open spaces. But at the same time, you could literally walk down to the train station and the downtown square area. It's highly unusual. So it really is a very special strategic position. One of the other things I wanted to ask of the land use concept and the conservation and open space is, there is a lot of conversation up in Hartford in regards to land use and enabling zoning changes. And we talked a lot about it from zoning authorities, from municipalities, and there's a lot of conversation. But I think for me, open space acquisition and preservation is an integral part of land use and zoning discussions. And I think one of the bills that's going to be a point of consideration, and I know we have Representative McCarthy Vahey, who's the chair of planning and development, in the bill of 5132 in regards to some of the potential changes from Hartford on down that may impact local input and open space preservation concerns from a locality standpoint to some of the goals of Hartford. I think that may be an opportunity for CLCC and a lot of our community land trust to be familiar with the impact of that legislation and offer your perspective on that. Because again, we talked about the conveyance issue, and Representative Gresko was very keen to say it is an opt-in and not a mandate. I want to be sure that any future enabling zone legislation and land use legislation that comes down from Hartford is not a mandate that usurps the local land trust's best understanding of how to use land and property in their communities. So I welcome the opportunity for CLCC and the audience to acquaint themselves with 5132 and the suggestion of that in regards to how state government with a important overarching goal fits within the local control and impact on how it best affects the community. So thank you all for your great work. But you know what, so exciting. And I can't wait for the fall to be able to walk 183. It's going to be even more beautiful and magical.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
And what a great segue to Representative McCarthy Vahey to just share some thoughts. And if you'd like to talk about the bill that the senator just referenced, and any insights in addition that you'd like to share.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for having me. It's great to see all of you colleagues and to meet some of you. David, congratulations on your new role. Yeah, and I think I may be saying your name incorrectly. I'm pretty sure, but congratulations to you as well. And I hope we get to meet in person. So a couple things. The bill that Rep. Gresko started with, I think, is an important bill. And I think the fact that 20 communities proactively asked for it means that we really ought to be considering that and not just considering it, moving it through the legislative process. And particularly given the status of the real estate market right now, now's a great time to do it. And what it means is that we'll be able to do more projects like this. And one of the things I love about projects like this and some of the other work that's happened and that we've talked about within this group is actually the regional nature. And you, Amy, mentioned that, the fact that the boundaries, we may have legal lines, but the land is just continuous. And so I think that working together is really, really important. The bill that was referenced, 5132, that's an actually much more of a zoning reorganization statute. So not so much with respect to open space, but I think what Senator Hwang might be referring to is other conversations that are happening with groups like Desegregate Connecticut and the Open Communities Alliance and others who are talking about issues around zoning and housing, issues that are really critical for us to talk about as a state when it comes to equity and justice. And I think that it really is important to that point that we all be talking together as environmental leaders, as those who support the environment, like so many people on this call, as well as those who support issues around justice and how we balance those needs. Because I think Senator Hwang, I think Tony, you said this, the shots were amazing. It was just breathtaking to see the land and to just experience it from up above. It made me wish I was an eagle to be able to fly and see myself in that way. It's just stunning. It also gives you an appreciation for just how many trees we have here in Connecticut. We've been reminded of that recently with the storm, but this is an amazing project, and we do need to invest and be able to have the funds needed. We need to work together across the region, across the state, to be able to pool resources and make sure that we are protecting and preserving those pieces of property and pockets of land that really need to, and we need to balance that with the needs of the people of this state. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today and to join forces with my fellow legislators. It's really great. I was on a call earlier talking about the fact that here in Fairfield, and I think this is true in so many of the other legislators' community, that it's everyone across the political spectrum who comes to us asking us to support environmental issues, Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike. So thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today, and more importantly, for your ongoing work on this important project and others.
Thank you so much, Representative. It's always good to see you and have you here and to share those insights as well. Representative O'Day had given a shout out to Mike Dugan. Mike is CLCC's lobbyist at the Capitol. And we were talking earlier about, I really hope that we will be able to see you in person at the Capitol. It's hard to imagine a legislative session where we're not all together there in the hearing rooms and in the hallway and, just in that hustle and bustle that is the Capitol. So if not, we'll see you in the Zoom room as well, but fingers crossed that at least at some point we'll be able to see you in person soon. With that, Rebecca, you want to, maybe we can come back to the Land Trust and talk a little bit about that video that everybody's so excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I did want to point out that David McCarthy, who is here on the call, is the David McCarthy that made the video. So, David, if you want to talk a little bit about maybe your process or some of the pieces that you're pulling together to showcase that beautiful place, and then maybe even segue into some of the parts that the community is excited about around the preserve.
Yes, thank you. When thinking about conservation at scales in rural communities, which is much larger than conservation at scale in urban communities, it's important to really see it in context. So that was kind of my motivation for using a lot of aerial, but paired with a lot of long parallel shots. And the idea is that you're saving a vast amount of land, and how is it connected to the community around it? So I was bouncing back and forth between that and doing my best to encapsulate what the land has saved and what preserving the land has saved, what preserving the land meant to the community, and what it means for habitat and interforest connectivity. And then, yeah, at any point, please, Peter, Mike, Donna, please feel free to jump in.
So David, why don't you segue into Donna, who can give us some, of the environmental benefits of this property.
Please, yes, Donna, have the floor.
Yeah, I'm happy to join in here. One thing that was not talked about, and what I think about quite often, having worked in conservation now, I'm going into my second decade, I can't believe it, but any environmental action amplifies the effects of other environmental actions. And with 183, it's 13 acres, and you think, oh, it's not 1,300 acres. The fact is that this 13 acres, we hit the jackpot with its effect on the environment in Wilton. It is the headwaters of a stream that flows into Comstock Brook. And we're beginning an initiative to make sure that trout stream, our only Class A trout brook in Wilton, doesn't get further degraded. So 183 not being high density housing, not having parking for 75 cars with runoff and pollution really does a lot to protect something that isn't 183, that's someplace else. The other thing is Wilton is the epicenter of the pollinator pathway. It was started in Wilton. The first connectivity of landowners was in Wilton. And I just learned this morning, we now have 100 towns on the pollinator pathway, and it stretches across 5 states. So and 183 is it. It's an early succession habitat. It's all about pollinators. The land had been farmed for so long that it really never got fully degraded by invasive species. So we've got a great palette to work with. The other thing that is good about it is, you know, the state of Connecticut is trying to attract educated and young people to live here. And what I'm learning is that you have to have a high quality natural environment in place to attract the young and the well-educated. And a place like 183, which has outstanding scenic value, you can just drive by it and you go, wow, it's on a fairly busy road. This is what people are going to come to Connecticut for. And then on top of that, we're going to have educational programs for children, and you know, the list goes on. So it's really, you have to look so far beyond just the number of acres in the little box that you're protecting. It's so important, especially in Fairfield County, which has all the pressure of you know, being a suburban sprawl and, you know, being overdeveloped. So I thank you. It's just been a wonderful gift to our town.
Donna, that's absolutely incredible. And I love that you brought up the pollinator pathway. That's something that people really want to get their hands in. And you started to allude to some of the new projects and educational opportunities. If you could just give a quick answer to how people can get involved and maybe some of the programming that they can get involved with now with Wilton.
David?
Sure, yeah, hi, hey. Before I talk about how to get involved, I would like to acknowledge some of Wilton's youths that have already got involved. So a quick shout out to our 2020 interns, Brett Gilman, Eli Grass, Sarah Schneiderman, and Kimmy Casano. Thank you for all that you've done to steward and protect Wilton's open space. For everyone on Facebook Live, thank you for tuning in. We encourage you to stay connected with your elected officials. And if you're not already, get connected with the Wilton Land Conservation Trust and stay tuned. We have a lot coming. What do we have upcoming soon is our Stewardship Sunday program to steward our existing preserves. There'll be announcements on our Facebook, Instagram, and website. So get connected and stay connected. And I do want to convey this too. We are here to help connect you with nature, and we'd love to hear from you, especially our residents and community members, on how we can do it better. We want to know what it is that's out there that you would like to see, or what you would like to, how you would like to work with us. So that being said, yeah, internet, Facebook, feel free to reach out, and we have a phone number, we have an email, we're in town and we're around, so don't hesitate.
That's great. You know, we have just a few minutes left, and to wrap it up, I want to just throw it out there again to our legislators who took so much time tonight to
Amy, I
be with
didn't know
us.
if you wanted to jump right in.
Oh, can you hear me? What's that? Oh, I thought somebody jumped in. Yeah? Okay. So I was just saying that I'd like to just make sure that we thank our legislators again for joining us, taking time out of what we know are very busy schedules as well, and just give you all an opportunity to say a few closing words before we say goodnight to Wilton. Anybody, any final thoughts?
Spread the word, everybody, to come visit your open spaces, your pollinator pathways, your land conservation grants. This is what makes Connecticut an amazing place to live.
Well, if I may, people should really walk 183 Ridgefield and really experience it, because I think after you do that, you should immediately visit the website and make a contribution, because it's that constant contribution. It's not only money, it's your effort, it's your attention, and ultimately it's your appreciation that is going to kind of withstand the test of time and the budget challenge that we have. So unless you really embrace it, unless you really feel it, you're not going to work as hard as all the people that are here on this screen. This is a core group, and I hope the Facebook group that's listening can really embrace it. But we have to spread the gospel to many others that there is a balance that can be reached, and that balance is one that enriches everybody's lives, but it's constant work. So I want to thank CLCC for all your work, and the Land Trust in Wilton for your great work, and all my colleagues that have been supportive of this. It's worth preserving because it really is something uniquely special. So thank you all. Thanks for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you, Senator, for joining us tonight. And any other final words, Representative Gresko?
I would just say that the work, if you want to call it that, starts now. I think that, you know, everybody on this call, everybody that's watching on Facebook Live who's interested in this already drank the Kool-Aid. So we need to pick a colleague that might not necessarily care about open space, or the response that I've got from some of my colleagues is, you know, I don't have any open space in my district, so what do I care? And, you know, taking that person and bringing them to an open space area to show them what we saw from the drone and what Tony saw from walking through, and Tom, it will really, you know, open their eyes. I've had this, I have the fortune of being employed part-time in Bridgeport, and I have been trying to instill the importance of open space to the Bridgeport delegation, because they have a fantastic opportunity to preserve 400 acres in the city, and I'm referring to Remington Woods, that is now being cleaned up by Corteva, but soon will be, you know, there was a Bridgeport Chamber of Commerce meeting this morning where they talked about going in there and putting in a development, blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to start now so that when the time comes, the delegation from Bridgeport will have seen what we see as far as appreciating these open spaces, and we can work together to try to save it. So that's my parting comment there.
Thank you, Representative. Again, just want to open up the floor. We've got a couple of minutes left from anyone here on the call tonight. Any final comments?
That's Peter. Just, you know, once it's gone forever. And for the state legislators, the municipal, you know, local funding just isn't there anymore. And so we heavily rely on the state component now, and that wasn't always the case. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for raising that. I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up, is to remind folks to kind of get familiar with the Community Investment Act, which again is www.communityinvestmentact.org. There are projects in every single town, as I mentioned. The Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Grant Program, or OSWA, OSWA. You just have to Google that and it'll pop up, and you'll learn a whole lot about these really critically important programs. And we do hope that you know, when we call upon everyone out there in Facebook land and to get involved, that you will respond. And I think that our legislators really said it the best, which is hearing from you is probably the most important thing. And so with that, I want to thank all of you tonight for coming. Thank all of our legislators here tonight for the work that you're doing. We know that tough times are here, and that tougher times likely lie ahead. And we appreciate in advance the work that you will have to get done this legislative session, and offer our assistance, of course, in every way. So thanks again to everybody, and it's 6 o'clock, and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.